Can't get enough of aliens? Well, neither can we. Here are our three favorite documentaries on all things out of this world. Join the discussion and let's talk about ET. Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I'm Shelley Pruitt, and these are my partners in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith and Mr. Ryan Roberts.
Hello.
All right, you guys. Okay,
What's up,
so
y'all?
we have been talking aliens all month long,
Mm-hmm.
and we are wrapping up our aliens. Now, don't worry, we're going to talk about them again at some point, but we are wrapping up our alien month with our three currently favorite either documentaries or documentary series about all things extraterrestrial. And we have picked some really, really good ones for you guys. I don't know about you guys, but I think poor Blake, he was trying to make the trailer and he's like, I have to know which one you're doing, Shelley. I'm like, yeah, but I just watched those three. And I
Like a 30-minute discussion. Shelley's like, I could do this one and I could do this. Oh, but wait, there's this one too. And I'm like,
and then I went, yeah, but I
okay.
need to go back and rewatch this one before I tell you what my favorite is.
Because basically these are ones that we watched kind of earlier on in the year, you know, I mean, they
Yeah.
kind of inspired for us wanting to do a full on alien month and the 75th anniversary of Roswell. It was just perfect timing. So we were like, you know what, let's kick it in July with the aliens and the extraterrestrials. So we did. And now we're going to wrap it up. And also at the end of this episode, we're actually going to turn the end of this episode, as we usually have a discussion, into what we're calling an open panel discussion. So if you have any questions that you've been dying to ask us about the paranormal, doesn't have to really be even about aliens, but if you want it to be about aliens, that's cool. Get them ready, get those questions ready, and pop them in the comments whenever we open it for discussion, and we'll be happy to answer those. So what do y'all say? Should we just dig in? Just go for it?
I'm ready to hop on a flying saucer right now. Let's do this.
Okay.
Let's do this. Wait, before we start,
Okay.
did any of y'all see what went through the sky in Texas the other night?
I did not.
Yes, I
know,
did,
Blake,
actually.
you and I were on the phone.
We were on the phone.
So my cornbread ass is at a Dwight Yoakam concert, and I happened to see. I was sitting here watching him play Honky Tonk Man, and all of a sudden I look up in the right side of the sky, and I see this. I mean, it looked like a shooting star, and I was looking at it, and I was like, "That's interesting." And it was bigger than a shooting star, and I was watching it as it came down, and it made like a fizzling sound's the best way I can describe it. And
A
then it
fizzling
just,
sound?
yeah, like you know how like when you like launch a bottle rocket, how like the fuse on the bottle
That-
rocket
yeah,
makes
yeah.
like that crackling,
Yeah.
like fizzling
Yeah.
sound.
Mm-hmm.
So it made that, and it went across the sky and down over to the right. And one of these guys to the right of me goes, "What the hell? It looks like a damned old firework." I said, "No, man." I said, "That was a comet." And as it was going down, it flashed green, like, and it was so bright that it looked like a lightning flash, and then it just disappeared. And I thought that was cool. But
comment.
yeah,
Well,
and I didn't realize that it was seen all the way across the state of Texas, because I was doing a little bit of reading afterwards, and they said that in order for it to do what it did, it had to be about as big as the size of a small car. And it was part of a meteor shower or space junk, and it was seen all the way from North Texas all the way to Houston. So
Oh,
Yeah,
it was, yeah.
and I went in to pick up our hats that we have made. We have merch now. We have hats. And the lady that was there, you know, I'm telling her thank you, and I'm walking out the door. About the time my hand hits the door, she goes, "Oh, by the way," I'm like, "Yes," and she goes, "Did you see see what was in the sky the other night? And I said, oh, yeah. She goes, well, what do you think it was? And I said, oh, we're being invaded. And I turned around to walk out, And she's like, So, yeah.
Damn, Kelly, given the nice, sweet lady who's handling our merchandise the heart attack.
You know what? She knows me. She knows what to expect from my ass. She should have known better than to ever ask me. She should have known I would have had a smart ass comment for her.
Probably.
And on that note, let's talk about things in the sky, Blake. Do you want to start it off?
Yes, I'm going to start off because I've got the documentary that if you just want to watch a UFO/alien documentary, like sit down in one sitting, be done with it when the evening's over, I've got the one for you. It's a new one that Discovery Plus has released. Their Shock Docs thing, which, by the way, I'm loving their whole little Shock Docs.
Oh, it's fantastic.
They've got some very interesting ones. So not just this one, check them all out. But this one is the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill, or the alien abduction of Betty and Barney Hill.
And that is a fantastic story.
It is. And I'm going to just kind of scrape the surface because I know at some point on this podcast, we are going to delve far deep into their story.
Absolutely.
But to just kind of give you an idea of like what took place with them. Now, this was, if I recall, Brian and Shelley, y'all can help me on this. If I recall, this was like the first widely publicized UFO encounter case that kind of went out.
Personal experience,
like the encounter of the third kind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So where it takes place is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Sorry, I have something in my eye. And it's Betty and Barney Hill. They are a interracial couple at the time in 1961, which I think is fascinating because a lot of people debate their claims thinking, oh, they just wanted to be famous, garner attention, all this stuff. They were an interracial couple in 1961. I highly doubt that they wanted to draw attention to themselves. I'm not trying to point out anything, that has to do with race, but it is about race at that point because they're not going to want to draw attention to themselves at that point.
Even though they both were on the Civil Rights Movement Council.
Absolutely.
And they did work for that. They both worked towards that. You have to remember that was something that could get you hurt at that time in the United States. I mean, that was something that it's not as widely accepted as it is now. It was just something that, that could be dangerous for you being an interracial couple at that time in history.
And they end up coming forward and it draws all kinds of national attention to them. But this one takes place in September of 1961 and they're actually driving back. I found Ryan, you and I have talked about in depth about this. It was their honeymoon, correct? That they were.
It was their honeymoon. Yeah, they had been in Canada, I believe.
Okay. Niagara Falls is what I figured out. So they're driving back to Portsmouth, New Hampshire from Niagara Falls, and as they're driving along, Betty claims to have seen like this really bright point of light. And at first thought it was like a shooting star, and it began like whizzing around and growing in size and getting brighter and all of this stuff, while also moving very erratically. So she basically tells Barney, she's like, pull the damn car over. We got to let the dog pee anyway. So pull the damn car over and let's check this thing out. So they get out, they look at it through like binoculars and whatnot. And she starts seeing like this multicolored flashing of light around this thing. And I found one source that her sister had seen something recently and told her about it. And that's what led her to believe that it was a flying saucer, is the way that she put it. And so Barney thought at first as he's looking through like the binoculars that it was a commercial airliner was his first initial thought, is what he said, until it basically descended their direction very quickly.
Now, I think something of note that needs to be said here is Barney was an intense skeptic. Barney did not believe in any of that stuff. He was a very pragmatic, very practical, no nonsense kind of guy. He had been in World War II and he had seen a lot of stuff, and he was just one of those guys who was just like very matter of fact.
Yeah. And so basically they continue driving. They get back in the car. They continue driving. They're never really losing sight of this craft until they come up a little bit ways down the road. And all of a sudden this thing descends within like 80 to 100 feet of above the car is what happens. So Barney, I found one report that said he had a pistol on him and that he decided he felt comforted. So he steps out of the car to get a kind of better look at this, looks through the binoculars, and he sees these humanoids in the windows of this craft. And while he's looking, all but one of them begin to move like to this panel in the craft, and the ship basically starts to descend even more. And this one that's not moving is telling him telepathically or as he put it, transference, because he didn't know the word telepathically at the time. Don't move, keep eye contact, stay where you're at, yada, yada, yada. And so finally, I guess, is that connection broke or something, and he starts darting towards the car, and he tells Betty, they're going to capture us, is what he tells her. So they jump into the car, and as they're driving, he's like, look for it, basically. And she rolls down the window to look out. And as soon as that happens, it's basically above the car. And that's when they say they get this tingly sensation on their body and this beeping and buzzing sound that all of a sudden they're now in an altered state of consciousness. And it wasn't until like the second sound of beeping and buzzing that they were kind of snapped out of that. But when they were snapped out of it, they were, I think it was 35 miles south from where they were when this initially started. They had I found a couple they had either no recollection or very vague and very fragmented recollection of the last 35 miles. And so they end up arriving back home, way later than they should have.
4 hours of missing time.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be a 4-hour drive, and I think that or a 3-hour drive, somewhere along that lines, and it ended up turning into like a 7-hour drive.
Yeah, 6 or 7 hour. Exactly.
6 or 7 hour drive. Yeah, they had like 4 hours worth of missing time, and that's a big thing with claims of seeing UFO and claims of seeing extraterrestrials, aliens, or non-human entities, is that there's like this time lapse. You know, I mean, I even have a relative that was like, I saw one in the sky, and I made myself look at the time so that whenever it was gone, I wanted to look at the time again to see if I had any missing time. So I find the whole missing time and time lapse thing very fascinating.
I think they were the first case of missing time as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were. And so they ended up trying to, basically when they got home, Betty had decided like, hey, our luggage needs to stay back here. It doesn't need to go into the main house. Like they take these long showers. They realize that like there's the binocular strap is torn, but Barney can't remember how that happened. Their watches that they were wearing would actually never work again, is what they said.
Yeah, their watches stopped. Yeah.
And so they attempted to try and reconstruct the chronology of what just kind of transpired from witnessing this UFO until the drive home. And that's when they realized, shit, we don't know. We have no idea. I mean, nothing's making freaking sense. So, excuse me. From what I understand, they went to sleep for they took long showers and they went to sleep for a few hours. And when Betty woke up, she took the clothes that she was wearing, she put them in her closet. And after a little bit, she ends up taking these clothes out, and she noticed like this pink powdery residue on her dress. But she goes to hang the dress outside on a clothesline, I guess, which is where I heard that this pink powdery stuff kind of went away. It was no longer there whenever she got it. She decided, she's like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to throw it away. And then after throwing it in the trash, she's like, wait a minute, maybe not. And she goes back and she retrieves it and her shoes, and she puts them back in the closet.
And they also had a couple of very distinct burn marks on them as well. The dress still had burn marks on them as well.
Yeah. And so they had noticed as well, I believe it was the next morning-ish or whatever, there were these concentric circles, or concentric shapes, I guess you could say, on their trunk that weren't there the day before. I
think there are about 9 of them, right?
Somewhere around there. I found
that seems like the right number, but what's reported varies. But I think 9 is the most commonly accepted number. That is the most widely reported as the number. I believe you're correct, Ryan.
And they had figured out that like if they took a compass and kind of pulled it towards it, like when they got close to one of the circles, like it would start just rapidly spinning, pull it away, and it would kind of settle. And so basically they were like, what the fuck? I mean, I would have been. I'd have been like,
I'd have been like, time to set the car on fire.
And so it was, I believe, 10 days after their experience that Betty started to have these dreams. And like in these dreams, they were pulled off either in the woods or on the side of the road. And there was these men that were like surrounding the car, is what she had said. But these men resembled humans. But it's that thing that we've talked about on past episodes, that it's like there's that few features that are just like their eyes are a little too large.
Not quite right.
Yeah, it's just not quite right. And that's what she kept saying, is that she was remembering these men and being taken aboard the craft and being examined, like in her dream. This is happening in her dream. And during the examination, she says they examined like her eyes, her nose, her ears, her legs, her feet. Said that the most painful part was they injected a long syringe into her belly button, but it was like all this excruciating pain, and this being just like waves his hand in front of her eyes, and like all the pain goes away. And so it's like after the examination, she finds like this book and she starts thumbing through it, and she sees this like row of symbols of all these weird symbols on it. And she asks the leader, is what she called him, kind of like, where are you from? You know, like, take me to your leader. And he pulls down
hey,
this,
how are you tonight? Where you
Yeah.
from, honey?
Yeah, they just shoved a long syringe up her belly button, but it's like, where are you from?
You might as well tell me who you are if you're gonna do that to me.
I mean, if you're already captured, I mean, make some
Might as well make
conversation. I guess.
friends.
Yeah. And so the leader pulls down this instructional map looking thing of this constellation of stars, so to speak, and basically kind of showing her where they're from. And so it's after that you know, the beings, from what I understood, they like, hey, if you like the book, you can keep the book and take it with you, you know, blah blah blah. But there was like this big huge disagreement upon leaving the ship, to where they just kind of took that away, and they were like, nope, you're not gonna take that. Matter of fact, you're not even gonna remember this. Why don't you just go back to your car, sit there, wait for the craft to leave, and then you can go on home. And that's what they did in this dream. And these were consecutive nights of dreams. I believe there were five nights
It's
in
five.
a row.
Yep.
That she was having these dreams. And after the fifth night, though, she was never, from what I understood, she was never to have them again. So that's when they started trying to figure out, okay, what can we do about like this missing time slip? You know, and they start finally kind of opening up, like very privately at first, about like their experience, like at a church function, is what I read. And after that, they came out public to a larger group. And in this larger group is kind of where they started to cross paths with all these people that eventually ended up leading them to Benjamin Simon, who was a hypnotist, who decided to, hey, let's do regression. Let's hypnotize you. Let's see if we can't make these memories pop back up. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was say, and what he did was the hypnoregression therapy that he specialized in was developed because he was trying to help people who had traumatic experiences in World War II kind of get those memories out and have them be able to live normal lives, because they were being haunted by these memories. So that's what it was developed for initially. And then he worked with Betty and Barney Hill to help them kind of
correct
get their stuff out.
And I know we're gonna, like I said, you can either go watch the documentary, or we're gonna go further deep into this on another episode later on. But they went deep into, each one of them went deep into kind of what they experienced on this craft. And from what I was reading, like through the doctor's notes and all that stuff, is it was pretty traumatic. I mean, even the part where like Betty was just crying. Barney was saying things, you know, that he was terrified, he was scared, that it was a very traumatic experience.
And if you've and do they play those for you, Blake, on that documentary? Do
yes, they do.
Okay. Is it not absolutely spine chilling to hear Barney Hill scream
Yeah.
and say, "Get me out, I'm scared, I'm scared."
Yeah.
And this scream that I got chilled up, this scream that he lets out will make your blood run cold. It is a pure scream of terror he does in the middle of this hypnotic regression. I don't, ooh, chill bumps on my arms just thinking about it, because I can still hear that in my head. That is one of those that once you hear it, it will be something that you know what terror sounds like after you hear his scream in the middle of that hypnotic regression.
It's hard to listen to. I mean, it's a grown man
hard.
who is terrified.
Yeah, and they do play a good little chunk of the hypnoregression tapes that were taped during those sessions with Dr. Simon. But the fascinating part to me was that towards the end, they go back to this star map and that Betty had seen, and she actually had like drew it out. And this lady, who was an elementary teacher, and I think she was just an amateur astronomer, basically had the thought of like, I wonder if I could decipher this, you know, if I could figure out exactly where they're at, see where they're coming from. And what she did was she basically took different solar systems, I guess you say, galaxies, whatever, that would have a sun that's very much like ours, that could produce life, have life in it, that was around Earth, and started kind of pinpointing and dotting them out. And she looked at thousands of different vantage points, is what it said, until she finally got an alignment that looked exactly like what Betty drew. And y'all, they show the comparison of Betty's drawing versus the 3D model that this lady created. And holy crap. I mean, Shelley, you and I had a conversation about that on the phone that was just mind-blowing, like how close it was.
Well, and also the thing is at the time that star cluster that she drew out had not been discovered yet.
No.
It was still yet undiscovered, and it was yet unnamed. And she had a name for it as well. And that was the one thing that they could not figure out. That is the one thing they have never been able to debunk, how she drew an unknown star cluster that NASA astronomers hadn't even discovered yet.
I think it was somewhat like a 39 light year, something like that, light years away.
Yeah, it was way out there.
They ended up calling it, hold on, I wrote it down. Zeta Reticuli.
Yeah, Zeta Reticuli, correct.
Yeah, 39 light years away. But it's just, yeah, and that's something that took years to accomplish for this lady. I mean, we're not talking about like 1961 happened, they had the experience, and then boom, all of a sudden she had a 3D diagram 2 years later. No, we're talking like this was years.
I think it was the mid 70s by the time she was able to.
I believe that you're right. Yeah.
That's because it had to be discovered first, and then they were able to plot it out and find it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that is one. It has recently been released. I believe it was this year that it had been released. The abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. But y'all, if y'all want one that is like such a good, solid case of a UFO sighting or an alien encounter or non-human entity encounter, whatever you want to label it as, extraterrestrial, that one's just fascinating. And I'm gonna give you another freebie one, but I'm not gonna go into it. While you're on there, go ahead and also go watch the Travis Walton one, which is the true story behind Fire in the Sky. And that is another one that it will just freaking blow your mind about some of the things that happened to both sets of people, Betty and Barney Hill and Travis Walton. So yeah, I enjoyed watching, but I did watch both of them. I enjoyed watching both of them. I will say again, I was not the alien guru. You two are the alien guru, but I will say in the last 4 weeks, I have learned quite a bit. The door is open to the alien world. I have always been a believer. It's just never really delved into it. And I appreciate coming on this little month-long ride with y'all. But if y'all want a good documentary, I'd highly, highly recommend The Abduction of Betty and Barney Hill on Discovery Plus. It's
One of us.
One of us. One of us. One of us. Well, I think that I'm going to go next because I'm going to kind of piggyback onto Blake's. Mine is also from Discovery Plus, and mine is actually a continuing series at this point. There are 2 seasons, and it is called UFOs: The Lost Evidence. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is by far one of the most fascinating series and most, I have not seen an episode yet that I was just not glued to it, entranced by it. I watched this series now through at least 4 times. And my whole thing was I had to figure out which one I was going to tell y'all about, because there's 2 seasons and another season coming very soon. And again, UFOs, if I can say it correctly, The Lost Evidence. Now, every one of these has got some never before seen footage in it, has got actual documented evidence in it. If there is something that has been recently released, they have it. And they have it broken down by categories that you would like. Like one of them is UFOs and Native Americans. One of them is UFOs, and this is what I'm going to talk to you guys about. UFOs and the Nazis. Child, this one's in season 2.
Ooh.
And this one, I think I probably watched through about 15 times, just because every time I go back and watch it. So when World War II was going on, the German technology was far superior to ours. And this goes into let me get so I don't get anything incorrect here.
Y'all, Shelly's got a binder full of notes. So
She does.
so she is-
She couldn't decide which one to talk about tonight.
I
Y'all.
know. So, but it was alleged that the Nazis did have alien technology, did have UFO technology, and probably the most controversial and speculated upon item that the Nazis were alleged to have had was called the Nazi bell. Now, if you don't know what the Nazi bell is, it literally was this bell-shaped craft that was alleged to be a device that you could time travel in. And that allegedly the Nazis had this technology, and Werner von Braun, we talked about him in Roswell, was the lead engineer for the Nazi, basically rockets and engineering and anything outer space. And the US got him. And so he had allegedly gotten this and perfected this thing called the Nazi bell. So they were saying that if Hitler were able to have actually activated this and made this thing work, that there was a high probability that the Germans would have won the war because their engineering and their superiority in technology. Now, I'm going to tie this into another UFO incident because they make this connection. It is alleged that the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania UFO incident. So when the Kecksburg incident happened, the craft that they recovered was bell-shaped and had interesting writing on it. And there was alleged to have been persons, and they say persons in the documentary, persons inside of this craft. Now, remember, the Nazi bell was made for time travel. And it's always been theorized that Hitler escaped. So if this was technically a time traveling device, they posed the theory that perhaps Hitler got into the Nazi bell, he was able to make it work, and he was jetted into the future and came down in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. And that's why that was under such high security. Everything about it was taken out. And yeah, but it was the same shape and size of the Nazi bell. It was the same design of the Nazi bell. It was a mirror image of the Nazi bell, what they recovered in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. So they allege that perhaps Hitler actually did escape World War II. And I know we're kind of going out there, but whenever they lay it all out, I'm telling you, when they lay it all out, you're going, holy shit, that makes a lot of damn sense because Hitler's body's never really been found. You got something that appeared to look like Hitler, but they put that under facial recognition and it does not match. That picture they show you of Hitler's body, that facial recognition does not match.
And the Soviets claimed for years and years and years they had his burned remains that they found at the bunker, and they did DNA testing on it, and it was a female.
Does not match.
It was not Hitler's. Yeah,
that's right. It does not match. So this Nazi bell. So that was the episode called UFO and the Nazis. Now another one, and I really like this one because you know me and all about conspiracy theories and government cover-ups and everything like that. Gentlemen, did you know that there was a place called Area 52? We all know about Area 51, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a military base, and I know whenever I say the name, and this one is under the title UFO in the Government.
Okay.
This is under this one called UFO in the Government. They have what is called Area 52. And this is a black ops site that is completely free of congressional oversight. And it is one of those ones that is in that black budget. Ryan, when I say the name, you're going to know what I'm talking about. And that is Dugway Proving Ground.
Oh, that's in Nevada as well, right?
That is in Utah.
Oh, it's in Utah. Oh, is it?
Yes.
Is it in the basin?
Right next to it.
Oh my God! Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Yes, Dugway Proving Ground is in the Utah desert, right next to the Uinta Basin. Now, in 1942, they did at Dugway napalm testing, chemical weapons testing, biological weapons testing. there was a lot of really nasty shit going on out at Dugway. And again, there's no congressional oversight on it. But what's interesting is they do tell the story of what's called the Skull Valley Sheep Incident. You ever heard of that one, Ryan?
That I don't know. Maybe once you start telling it doesn't sound familiar, but
okay. Now I've told Blake this story, and Blake was like, "What the actual hell?" So this is under this episode UFOs in the government, and so in Skull Valley, it's predominantly inhabited by tribal Americans that are sheep ranchers. So in 1968, this Skull Valley is only 30 miles from the Dugway Proving Ground. 6,000 sheep died overnight. Fell where they stood. 6,000 basically wiped out all this tribal land people's herds. And it's alleged that there was a nerve agent, that there was a mistake at Dugway Proving Ground. And this mistake released a chemical nerve agent that killed all of those sheep. Now, the tribal Americans did confirm that they received some compensation for the loss of their livestock. But they weren't quite sure who was compensating them. They received checks in the amount of their livestock from unincorporated accounts. So the government says, yeah, we don't know. We didn't have nothing to do with that. But suddenly they all get checks. And there were a couple that were on there saying, yeah, we were compensated, but we don't know exactly who compensated us.
Right.
So it's alleged that at Dugway, so Dugway is actually considered Area 52. And Blake, I believe you have a picture. One of the guys that's on there, and his name is, let me make sure I get it right, Dave Rosenfeld. He is a UFO investigator, and he roams and investigates in the Uinta Basin. And he goes around, he follows the fence line of Dugway. You can only get so close. That is protected. That is an actual Area 52 encounter. Someone got too close. You see that at the white SUV at the top, there are gentlemen with machine guns walking people out of a car. You see the guy in the white shirt that's standing right in front of that. They are walking those people back one by one because they got too close to the Dugway Proving Grounds. So there's every bit as much security at Dugway at Area 52 as there is at Area 51. There are signs posted just as at Area 51 that say that there is lethal force that's authorized beyond that point. That they also say on the outside that there are unexploded ordinances do not pass. People have been alleged to have disappeared from the Dugway Proving Ground area. Also, there's not a lot to see at Dugway. And that is because most of Dugway is underground. There is alleged that they have seen craft, people who are in the Uinta Basin who are not too far from the Dugway Proving Ground have seen things go down and appear to disappear into the earth.
So I have a question.
Maybe I have an answer.
What if Area 51 is a ruse and Area 52 is where all the shit happens?
Yeah,
I knew you'd pick up on that. Blake and I were talking about, you know what? And I think that is exactly right, because again, I think most people have heard of Dugway, but they don't realize that it's actually military-wise considered Area 52. I don't think people realize that it is a black ops site, that it has no congressional oversight whatsoever. And it's basically, this was one of those sites that when people started asking questions, bad things happened.
Oh, really?
Like presidents. That's one of those places that the presidents usually don't need to know about unless something goes wrong. And of course, why would you tell a president about black ops sites? You need to give them plausible deniability. And as you recall, presidents are temporary employees. Never served more than 8 years. You don't tell your trade secrets to somebody who's a temporary employee.
No, that's true.
But definitely Area 51. If you have everybody looking at Area 51, look over here. And now we're really getting shit done over at Dugway Proving Ground.
Yeah, everyone's distracted by the right hand while the left
That's
hand's
right.
doing something else.
Let's storm Area 51. Yeah, go ahead. They don't give a shit. Just don't go to Area 52 at Dugway Proving Ground. Yeah, you go ahead and you storm and you go on with your bad self. They don't care.
You about
just
to
stay
find
away
out.
from just stay away from Dugway. Stay away from Dugway. And that is one of those places that if you ever delve into Dugway, and they go much, again, I'm just giving you the oversight because I got another 2 pages of notes on Dugway, but I'm just going to, you need to go watch UFOs, The Lost Evidence, and Find UFOs in the Government. That one is fantastic. UFOs is in the Nazis. So they all say UFOs and something. You can find something, one of those, in all this list that has something that you will be interested in. I also have one about past and present. It says UFOs past and present. And that's the other one. I took notes on 8 of them. I'm only going to tell you about this one. This will be the last one I tell you about.
Shelly.
Dang, Shelly.
I know.
Well, he was working overtime.
There's only 14.
She was
so
ready.
I figured I got more than half. So this one's UFOs past and present. And between the 14th and the 17th century, you know, we all know what's going on then. That's the Renaissance.
Mhm.
And that was actually when the authority of the Catholic Church began to decline, like sharply decline. People began to challenge the ideas of you know, God and all that kind of thing. They begin to look at things through a scientific lens instead of just a religious lens. And they were challenging the Catholic Church's beliefs. And this was not good. So the church began to fight back, and they began to silence people who were speaking out against the church and speaking on behalf of sciences, to the point where they began to impose really harsh punishments for scientific thoughts or theology. One of the things they did was Giordano Bruno. He's probably one of the more well-known martyrs of the Renaissance, that was basically a victim of the Catholic Church, because he had the nerve to publicly suggest that there might be life beyond birth, might be life beyond Earth, and that our birth origin may not be here. And the Catholic Church reacted very swiftly and very strongly. They burned him alive at the stake.
Ooh.
So, yeah, but even though they silenced Giordano Bruno, they couldn't silence everyone. And Art de Gelder has a very famous painting that was painted during the time of the Renaissance, and it's called The Baptism of Christ. And what it is it shows Christ being baptized by John the Baptist. And if you look up above, there is a very distinctive craft up in the sky, which seems to imply that perhaps that, and again, this is the implication, that perhaps Christ's abilities and powers, and I'm going to piss off a lot of religious people here, this is not my words, these are their words, were of an otherworldly, that they had been given to him otherworldly, that it was not. But again, if you think about it, you're right. Christ did have otherworldly powers. God gave them to him. This might have been the God that they were talking about. Again, it all kind of meshes together. Again, I'm not trying to make anybody mad. This is their what they theorize, that his powers were otherworldly. Because, child, if I could turn water into wine, shit, I'd be drunk all the time. That's all I got to say about that.
That like I said, that confuses me, because by definition, Christ's powers were otherworldly. Like like you were saying, he was given powers by, like, he was God and given powers by God. By definition, it was otherworldly.
Yes.
And if they believe in the Bible, there's several instances in the Bible of what could be considered craft, or what could be considered some sort of thing, like the thing that, what was it, Ezekiel, the thing that he saw, and what was guiding the Israelites through the desert, the cloud that dropped manna and dropped water.
That's right.
For them. So I don't understand why they're all up in arms about that, but I digress.
Again, it depends on your own personal belief system. But there's also another very famous picture, and I know that everyone has seen this, and unfortunately I did not get a picture of it to Blake. Let me describe it, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's called the Madonna with Saint Gio de Bernino. I can't say his last name. And it was painted in the 15th century. So right there, as the Renaissance is peaking. And what it is that you've seen it. It's a figure of the Madonna. And there are two, there's the baby, and then there's a cherub by the baby. And she's encircled in this beautiful window almost. But up in this little corner, there's a small craft. Now, what's interesting, if you go back and look at that picture of the Madonna, not only is there a craft, but directly below that craft, there is a man and a dog. and they are both pointing and looking at the sky. Now, that in particular, I had never noticed, because what you're looking at is you're looking at this beautiful painting of the Madonna. You're looking at the
Mhm.
baby and the little cherub. Blake, are you furiously looking for it right now?
Yeah, just keep
Yeah, see
talking.
if
Yeah.
you can find it.
It's a cool
it-
painting. Yeah.
But I had never noticed, and this is the truth. And I did all that, UIL art, art identification, whatever that stupid thing was.
Mhm.
But there's a dog and a man, and they are both looking at the sky. They're not looking towards the Madonna and the new baby. They are looking in the sky at that craft that sits up there. And so that to me was super duper fascinating. And that one is under the heading of UFOs past and present. They go into several different pictures. Those are two of the most widely known.
Mhm.
Now, Ryan, had you ever seen the Baptism of Christ picture?
I had seen that one, and I'd seen the other picture you're talking about,
The Madonna?
with the guy pointing in the back with the dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but I'd never noticed the guy and the dog. And because, I looked at, and to be honest, the first time I ever looked at it, I don't even think I remember seeing the craft. So that was something that was truly, truly fascinating to me. That one was just like, and trust me, child, I paused that. I'm like going, holy crap, there's a dude doing this, and there's a dog looking at it too. And so that was one of those ones that I found fascinating, not only for the history and the Renaissance and that kind of thing. Did you find it, Blake?
Getting there.
Getting
Keep
there?
Did they go into the because there's a painting of it too? It's pre-Renaissance, but about the battle over and go ahead.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so that is the Madonna, and you see the baby there, and then you see the cherub above the baby Jesus. But if you look up into I guess it's mirror imaged. If you look up in the corner, and then you look directly below that craft, there's a man and his dog, and they are both looking up at the craft.
I believe the man's pointing at it too.
He's pointing at it. Yes, he is.
Wow.
So
But
that is fascinating.
So the question I was going to ask is, and it's pre-Renaissance art, but I don't know if they went into it or not. Did they talk about the? It was called the battle over. I think it was over Munich, or it was somewhere in Germany, where they painted like the airships in the sky having a fight over.
Oh, yes. They have that one in there too. And there's actually rows and rows of craft.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And what's funny is they all have that standard flying saucer shape.
Mm-hmm.
Long before anything that we would have ever, thought about.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, yes, I that one in particular is one of my favorites. And then of course so let me tell you some of the people that are on this. So one of the people that is on this, her name is Erica Lucas, and she is a very well-known UFO investigator. You can find her on almost any UFO documentary. She's been doing it for a while. She's written a couple of books. Another one that they have is Dave Rosenfeld. He is a UFO investigator. He investigates in the Uinta Basin. But the one that fascinates me the most that's on there, his name is Nick Pope. And if you don't know who Nick Pope is, he was a member of the British Ministry of Defense from 1985 to 2008. And he's running his yap, y'all. He is telling everything he knows. He's talking about whenever he was having to investigate, and they do have a whole thing of UFOs in the world where they specifically talk about the British or the Royal Air Force. And he's talking about how he investigated some of those cases. He was part of some of those cases. And he is absolutely phenomenal to listen to. But you know what? He doesn't give up as many secrets as he ought to. Because I'm going, come on, old Nick, you got to tell us something else. I'm like, Nick, you holding out on me. I can tell. I can tell. So he is one that is absolutely fascinating on there. They have several other experts, but the primary people that they have on there is Erica Lucas and Dave Rosenfeld and Nick Pope. They are your three main commentators that guide you through each of these episodes. But they do bring in other experts to talk to you about it. And I did not write down this man's name. I want to say his last name I think his name is Billy Cohn. And he is actually a minister. And he talks about ETs and the scriptures. He takes passages in the Bible and he shows you where they match up. And so when they get into ones that have religious undertones, they pop him up on the screen. And he is fascinating. He will tell you the passage in the Bible and says, what do you think this refers to? This is exactly what they're talking about. So if you want something that you can binge watch, This is what you need to go and watch. UFOs, The Lost Evidence. Pick your favorite. It will be so difficult because I mean, if you want to know about, unidentified submersible objects, child, that's episode 1. And they talk about the Stockholm sightings and about the Brokewater incident, where these guys come up off the submarine and they see something underneath them to the point where they race to the surface and they're about to set off a weapon against what they see. And then it's just gone. It comes up on radar. It's coming up fast. It's moving through the water so fast. Then the Stockholm sightings were witnessed by, I think, something like 300 different people. And because it's in that bay, they knew what this was. They saw, submarines and stuff go in and out. The military came in, but it was something different. And so, yes, you guys, UFOs, The Lost Evidence, just pull up your popcorn, put on your jammies. Don't plan on going to bed anytime soon, because every time one is over, you will not be able to wait to get into the next one, as I've done now like 3 days in a row, is watching it over and over and over again.
I think that's just our daily life at this point.
Oh,
yeah.
Our TVs are constantly on anything paranormal or UFO related. So
yeah, and I'm trying to see if there's anything that I left out. I didn't tell you about the Olmec people, because they did one about the ancients, UFOs in the ancient cultures, and that's where they talk about the Olmecs and the Mayas and things that they had that were exactly the same, even though there's no way they could have known each other. They lived in different time periods and didn't live in the same area. The Olmec culture one is fantastic. Anyway, you can go watch it and find out for yourself.
Because Shelley could be here all night and fill in entire
That's right.
episode.
I want to make sure that I give Ryan a turn, because we got to have time to discuss.
Yeah.
No, like I definitely need to go watch that, and once again, mine's going to be from Discovery Plus as well. I think Discovery Plus is a great resource to have.
We tried so hard to just make it all on one streaming service for you. You don't have to jump back and forth between Hulu and Netflix. It's all a Discovery Plus.
If you are a paranormal, if you're a paranormal nut, be it ghosts, UFOs, whatever, get Discovery Plus. It is an amazing resource to have.
It's totally worth it.
You can find some really cool stuff on there. I can't recommend it enough.
Especially if you are a documentary junkie. And Ryan, I know you're a documentary junkie. Blake, you're a doc, and I am too. I don't watch a lot of stuff that isn't documentaries. So that's all I want to do is and history documentaries, UFO anything.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of my new go-to if I want to find a documentary that is worth my time to watch. Because I've watched some not on Discovery Plus, on other streaming services, and I'm going, somebody paid y'all to make this? Y'all didn't tell me anything I didn't know.
It's like somebody made this and with a green screen and playing like the backing track with a recorder flute in the basement, and you're just like, I can't. I can't do this.
Going for real? I'm like going, okay, first of all, poorly made, but no. Everyone we're telling you about, you are going to be fascinated with.
Yeah.
And Ryan, you're welcome, because I gave you UFO Witness. That was my other one I wanted.
Well, yeah, and that's the one I'm doing, and I just got to say that like this show is absolutely fascinating. I'm going to talk about the UFO Tic Tac incident that they investigate in the very first episode. However, let me give you a little bit of background on who the host is for the show. The guy's name is Ben Hansen. If you have watched any paranormal show the past 10 years, you've probably seen him at least once. I remember first seeing him on Fact or Faked on Sci-Fi, and this guy was actually a former FBI agent. So this guy knows his stuff.
He is.
He's not just some average Joe run-of-the-mill guy. Like, this guy is a former FBI agent. Like, he has a graduate degree in sociology and abnormal psychology and has a certificate in criminology. This guy knows his shit.
And he is a big debunker. He does not say something is legit if it is not, because he strives to debunk.
Yeah, he absolutely does. He goes really thorough, in depth, and tries to figure out what these people may have seen and tries to figure out how some of these incidents may have happened. But in the first episode of the series, go check this one out. He gets into the Tic Tac UFO, which is probably the most famous piece of UFO footage that we have now. For those who don't know, the Tic Tac UFO is what has been being presented before Congress in the last however many hearings they've had on UFOs. It was leaked in
Mhm.
2017 by the To the Stars Academy that Tom DeLonge, we kind of talked about him last week too. He was in Blink-182. He left Blink-182 to start the To the Stars Academy because he's always been into UFOs. He leaked that footage to the press, to the New York Times in 2017. The Pentagon later came back and confirmed that that was footage from a military exercise out off of the coast of San Diego. But that was an unidentified object and that they could not figure out what the hell it was.
That audio alone, sorry to interrupt you, but that
you're
audio
fine.
alone, listening to them try and figure out what the hell they're looking at.
Mhm.
I mean, you can just hear just how genuine their reaction is.
Oh yeah.
They're just like, no, we ain't got no idea.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because if I'm, like 18 plus show, if I remember correctly, one of the guys, the first thing he says is, "Dude, what the fuck is that?"
yeah.
And yeah, so they're chasing this thing. So anyway, Ben Hansen tracks down the former chief radar officer who was on the Nimitz that day, and that's where that video comes from. It's from the Nimitz. The aircraft that recorded that video was dispatched from the Nimitz off the coast of San Diego. This guy's name is Kevin Day. And he was, like I said, he was the chief radar officer on the Nimitz that day. And that day, they were off the coast of San Diego on a training mission. And they encountered a cylindrical object that could not be explained. And so Kevin spotted this on radar. And based on all the radar readings, he said that this thing hovered between 15 and 24,000 feet. And it drifted, it just flew around these sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. It flew around these crap, like our jets, like it was nothing. So like I said, the video was leaked by the To the Stars Academy and the Pentagon confirmed it's legitimately. Now, he said they were doing an air defense drill. They were 90 miles off the coast of San Diego, and his job was to be the radar operator, and he had to identify anything in that airspace. So he knows what he's looking at. Nothing else should have been in that airspace. And he noticed strange blips on his radar off of Catalina Island. And he said at about 25,000 feet, this thing was flying at 100 knots. And he was looking at this, and this makes absolutely no sense to him. And so they kind of rebooted their radar systems because he thought maybe it was a glitch. And when they reboot the radar systems, the signature is back on the radar, and it had changed speeds and started moving erratically. And it did not make any sense to him what he was seeing on his radar. So he's like, well, there's no one supposed to be in this airspace. We got to send a jet out to check this out. So they scramble 2 jets immediately. The pilots get there, and they described it as a 40-foot long white Tic Tac shaped object. And the video that was released was recorded from one of the jets that engaged this thing. And the pilot, you say, what the fuck is that? Is the one that chases this UFO. The object dropped from 28,000 feet to the surface of the water in less than a second. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And it's impossible with the technology that we know to exist.
Yeah. So Day said that he was just absolutely flabbergasted. He's looking at this. He's like, I cannot account for any craft that I know that could do such a maneuver and not fall apart. Mm-hmm. Because he said, according to what he said, that fast of a drop would put like 1350 G-force onto a aircraft, and the most that any normal aircraft could stand is probably like, I think it was like 15 at the most, maybe, before it starts falling apart.
Can't the human body only take up to about 8?
I think so. Something
you start
like that.
to have serious problems, and that's somebody who's trained that they can. Most people begin to black out at 2 or 3 Gs. So,
and he's telling this story, and he's looking at Ben Hansen. He's like, you don't believe me? I'm telling you what happened. And what struck me as really interesting about this is, like, this guy is the chief operating naval officer who was operating the radar on this thing. He's not he's a trained observer. He's not going to lie about what he saw. And not only that, he's got this far and away look in his eyes and starts getting choked up when he's talking about this thing because it scared him that bad. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that just lends even more credence to what he saw. So he says that they watch this thing, and then all of a sudden it just blips out, like it flies off. And he said that immediately after that, these helicopters land on the decks of the Nimitz. And these Air Force officers get off. They come into the radar room. They come into the comms room. They take all their data. They take all their comms data, and they get on a helicopter and they take off again. And he's like, they're gone. I don't know who they are. I don't know. Like, they had TS, top secret clearance. They came in, they took all this, and they left. So he tries to follow up with his chief officer. He tries to follow up with anybody in high command on the ship about this, like in the days following, and no one wants to talk to him about it. They say nothing about it. He's just kind of like, basically don't talk about it.
Yeah.
What you didn't see what you saw, don't
Didn't
talk.
Happen.
Well, something that is, and he's pretty upset about this, because he's like, I need someone to tell me what I saw, because I don't know what I saw.
For sure.
It's his job to know what's in the sky.
What it is.
And he
Exactly.
doesn't know what it is.
And, you know, he can't figure this out. And shortly thereafter, he starts having like these horrible nightmares. He starts having nightmares. And so Ben Hansen asked him, like, what nightmares are you talking about? And he said, I'm talking like end of the world stuff, like floods and natural disasters and things of that nature. And he, like I said, he gets choked up. And he starts about to cry. He's like, I just want answers. I want to know what this thing is. So, you know, he says that he thinks that whatever it was, these things have been here for a while, and our government has probably known about them for a while, but they're not talking, and he would like to know. So Ben Hansen gets kind of curious, and he is trying to figure out, he's like, well, maybe let me see if there's maybe an incident further back where anyone has encountered anything that you described. So he contacts Jenny Zeidman. Now, Jenny Zeidman is the last surviving member of Project Blue Book. She worked with J. Allen Hynek. She worked with the U.S. military, and she interviewed several people for several UFO events, compiled all their reports, and put them in these reports for Project Blue Book.
Fascinating woman.
She is a very interesting lady. And she has all of her research and everything still at her house. And so Ben Hansen,
because she made copies of everything.
Oh yeah, she absolutely did.
Yep. And if can we harken back for a second? This is the lady that I called Blake. I'm like, we got to get her on. We got to get her on. Oh my God, I'm gonna find this lady. And this is all playing. And then I'm like, and I'm going to Blake. I'm gonna find her. Blake, I'm gonna find her. And then all of a sudden, the episode ends and it says, dedicated to the memory of Jenny Zeidman, who passed away. And I'm like, shit, she died. She died before the episode was over.
Yep. But she's a fascinating woman. You guys should go check her out and see if you can't find anything out about her, because she's a very interesting lady.
She's talking on UFO Witness. She's talking.
Yes, she is. Absolutely. So he goes and talks to Jenny and explains to Jenny, hey, this is what the Tic Tac video is. This is what this guy described to me. Have you heard of anything else like that? And she goes, oh, absolutely. And he's like, okay, well, what case are you talking about? And she brings up the 1973 coin helicopter case, where in 1973, there was a helicopter crew flying over Ohio, and they were approached by an object very similar to what they saw off the coast of California. And this thing was messing with them as well as it was messing with our jets and messing with our radar. And so he gets his hands on this, and he goes and he interviews one of the helicopter pilots that was there that day. And this guy's name is Rick Zazzle. And this guy Rick Jazzle. And he does not interview. He doesn't do interviews. He's denied so many interview requests about this, but he finally relents, and, you know, Ben gets to interview him.
Isn't that because Jenny called him and
Jenny
said
called
you need
him
to hurry because he's not long for this world. He doesn't feel well. But Ben Hansen only got in to interview him because Jenny made the phone call.
Exactly. Because he's not someone that wants to talk about this because he saw something that he can't explain.
Yeah.
So what he tells Hansen is on October the 18th, 1973, they were in a helicopter just doing like routine fly arounds, him and the crew he was in. And they were flying about 2,000 feet above the ground when the crew noticed a red light approaching from the horizon to the east, I think is what he said. He said the light was approaching at a high rate of speed, and Coyne, who was the pilot, that was his last name, saw this, and he put the aircraft into an auto rotation because this thing was coming so fast it was going to collide with them. And so he said when you put it into an auto rotation, the helicopter is supposed to drop pretty quick to avoid collision with whatever. It's an evasive maneuver. And he said whenever he put it into the
Control
evasive
panel.
maneuver, that when it started to drop, the helicopter didn't drop. As a matter of fact, it started to rise and started to go way high up in the air. And he said instead of dropping, it rose to 3,500 feet in a matter of seconds, which is
that's
impossible.
higher than most helicopters are supposed to go.
And what he noticed was he looked up and he saw the Tic Tac shaped UFO above them, and the helicopter is rising underneath this thing. And it, like I said, in a matter of seconds. And then all of a sudden, the Tic Tac UFO, like that, gone. And he was affected by it, and other crew members were affected by it. And just like Day, a lot of the crew members started having odd dreams immediately after encountering this UFO. They started having these out-of-body experience dreams. And he told Hansen that after the helicopter landed, that the helicopter's compass never worked right again. It did not point magnetic north, no matter what they did, that the compass would start pointing in opposite directions no matter what they did until it was changed out. Well, Ben gets in a helicopter because he's also a pilot, and he decides he's going to test this theory to see how fast a helicopter can rise. He gets in a helicopter. He's in a modern day helicopter, and it takes him 1.37 minutes to get to the height that the helicopter in the coin case did. So he's like, this is absolutely impossible. This helicopter did not do this of its own volition. Well, while he's in the middle of this, a MUFON member contacts him. He goes and meets with this MUFON member. And the MUFON member says that there is documentation that the compasses ended up being swapped on the helicopter, but that documentation disappeared. And there's other documentation that said that documentation was to be destroyed after 90 days. So...
But Jenny Ziegman kept a copy of everything.
Yeah,
so. She's like,
Jenny over there with the Xerox machine.
I like me some Jenny Ziegman. Oh, I like her.
Oh yeah.
I
she
like
did
her.
not.
She's like, I'm on Project Blue Book. What the hell are you going to do to me?
Yeah, exactly. I'm official. Well, okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So then they kind of turn to the story about the dreams, and all the crew members were interviewed, and all the crew members started having all these odd dreams. Well, the military came not to ask them about their encounter, but came to ask them about the dreams on multiple occasions. And he had found documentation that the actual Surgeon General had ordered the military to study of these people with these dreams. So it runs deep. It's very interesting. You guys should go check this out.
Ben Hansen also follows the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
He does.
He does.
He does in the second one.
Yep.
Yes, and it's kind of the same thing. Like
Mhm.
the UFO Lost Evidence, UFO Witness. He's following different cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they go down the rabbit hole. They go very deep on these things.
We love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I got tongue tied for a sec, but
All right.
I was really excited. But yeah, he absolutely.
By the way, UFO Witness is in its current season, and and actually, now don't click out of us. They have a new episode tonight, so I know what I'm watching tonight before I go to bed. I'm going and watching the new episode of UFO Witness tonight. You know what? Y'all don't need to go tonight. Y'all need to go tomorrow because you better watch the other ones first. So just hang with us.
But yeah, I mean, it runs deep, and you know, like we've talked about before, I do like now that the military is actually acknowledging that these people have seen these things, because for so long they had tried to ridicule them or tried to push them to the fringes or make them seem crazy and then not provide any sort of follow-up or any sort of, I mean, just the lack of compassion for these people who were trained to do what they were trained to do. And they come and they tell their superior officers, hey, this is what I saw. And these superior officers are like, no, you didn't. And if you speak about it, your career's on the line. That's the amount of psychological damage that's done to these people in the past. I hope that is now in the past, you know, with the disclosure that's coming out, because
absolutely,
I think, you know, even now they're admitting it. Too many people have seen too many things, and people need answers, and hopefully we get answers. I don't think they're going to give us all the answers that we want. I think that they're definitely going to give us what they can.
Yeah.
And what they want to give us, but people need answers to these questions, basically.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm sorry. Are you done with UFO Witness? Are we discussing now?
No, okay. I was going to say, hold on. Before you get into your little retort, hold on to that thought. I was going to say, why don't we just open this up to discussion? We're now going to move into the open panel discussion.
Okay, wait, Ryan. So Ryan's was UFO Witness. You can find it on Discovery Plus.
Yes,
mine was UFOs: The Lost Evidence. You can find it on Discovery Plus. And Blake's, yours was, what was the actual beginning of the title?
Alien Abduction of Betty and Barney Hill on Discovery Plus as well.
Okay, I didn't know if it had something before that or not, but because I was going to say the abduction of Betty Barney Hill.
So Ryan kind of kicked us off with the beginning a little bit of discussion. So we decided that we've been doing aliens all month. We've had a lot of questions asked of us, even on the podcast.
We've had questions messaged to us. Yeah.
Yes, we have. So we kind of decided we're going to open it up to an open panel discussion at the end of this one for the remaining time that we have.
We're going to discuss too. So
if there's any questions that you had for all month long, you've been dying to get an answer to, type them into the comment section. I have the comments pulled up now. We'll pop it on the screen and we'll do our best to answer it. If we don't know, we don't know. We'll tell you we don't know. If you got somebody who you want to answer specifically, just type their name into the comment as well. But we're all going to contribute.
Ryan, get ready because you're the smart one.
But so Shelly, continue what you were going to say to Ryan's about disclosure.
So what I'm going to say is that what I have found, and what seems to be a consistent theme that runs through a lot of these, is that a lot of people say, like you say, Ryan, that they are looking for that the government has to tell us something. Now, in the same vein, well, as much as we want to know, there are certain things they absolutely can't tell us as a matter of national security, because if we have something that keeps us safe, like we don't want, say, the Russian government or the Chinese government to get this technology. And so there are some things that I'm okay with you not telling me about. However, whenever you begin to ridicule the public or make people who come seem like they're crazy, again, like that Arizona governor over after the Phoenix Lights incident, that's just wrong. That's right. I understand that there are some things that you cannot tell us in order to keep us safe from foreign powers and that kind of thing. I get that. But at the same time, I think we need to know. Now, I'm going to pop in with something that Blake and I had a discussion about, because in my quest to decide which documentary series I was going to do, there was one that I really, really liked. I'm not going to say the name because I'm about to bang on it just a little bit. And I was so into this, and I'm going, this one is so good. I'm like, I'm really loving this one. And then they go into talking about lizard people. And I was like, oh, God, okay. I'm like, lizard people. I'm like, lizard people. Okay, lizard people, that's a little far, because they're saying like the whole reptilian race and the spikes on the heads and that kind of thing. And I was like, okay. And as I'm watching this gentleman who is on there, he jumps in and he says, here's what the problem is. He goes, our human brain, we all have this line that we draw in the sand in our mind where it says, okay, I can believe in aliens, I can believe in this, but I can't believe in lizard people. Really? And they're like, you do it on a daily basis. Like, okay, yes, I believe there's a higher power. I don't know if I'm going to call it God or what I'm going to call it. There's a higher power. But did he actually come on the earth, walk on water, part the Red Sea? I can't go that far. But there's some higher power. Well, okay, well, why? Right. So the thing is that we all, and it was funny because I had just been doing that when I was like, yeah, I'm like, okay, I believe in aliens, but come on, lizard people.
Yeah.
Why not? That's like saying, okay, well, I don't believe that people can be 9 feet tall. Well, apparently they can, because they're in the they're in the Book of World Records and that kind of thing. But I can say, I don't believe people can be 9 foot tall. Why? Why not?
Well, let me ask this question. Were they just talking about the existence of a reptilian alien race, or are they talking about like Okay,
Yes,
they weren't
that
talking
was one
about
of the
them like
ones.
being in
No,
government and all that crap, because
no.
that's
They
where I
had.
kind
That's
of
a
like,
whole
yeah.
nother.
Why though? If you believe that they have mixed with the DNA, or that they have implanted themselves, or that they're able to blend or cloak or whatever, and that they are here, if you believe they're actually here, or they could live on a different solar system or galaxy, uh, why can't there be people that look like that? And he makes the good point about we all have that line in our mind that we don't want to cross. And I'm sort of going, yeah, I believe there's things on other planets. Yes, I believe that we're not the only ones out here. But lizard people, why? Why not lizard people? Well, I mean, mantis people, I'm okay with mantis people. What I got against the lizards? And you know what he says? He says, lizard people are very widely disregarded because we have been conditioned since the days of the Bible, the beginning, Adam and Eve. They were tempted by a serpent, by a snake, by something that looked reptilian. So anything that's reptilian, we're like, no, can't be that. And I thought that was a really good point because we all have that little bias in our mind, that line we won't cross.
Yeah.
And obviously reptilians is mine. So I'm like, you know?
I think the reason why that is the case is because you know, I'm gonna say it, you know, David Icke, that guy. I think that's the reason why maybe a lot of people
He went a little far with it, yeah.
exactly, because he's way out in left field with a lot of stuff that he says. So I think that's why a lot of people aren't really open to that idea of like there being lizard people.
And again, that's the thing. It seems like it's too far fetched, but again, why? We have no idea what's in these other solar systems. Why not a lizard person?
I mean, I think the possibility that a lizard person or whatever could be reptilian could come on a spaceship or come on whatever. Or
so you're willing to believe there's a spaceship? Okay.
I'm willing to believe that, but I'm not willing to believe that whoever is in charge of the country is a lizard person.
They didn't go into that. They're saying they're different types of beings.
But you know what I'm saying. There's like a lot of people who are like, "Oh, all the politicians and celebrities are lizard people." I don't believe that.
Okay, let me flip the script real quick because this actually leads very well into one of our questions that was submitted to us. Because we did have a couple that were submitted to us prior to. So this actually comes from Casey. And Casey asked, all he wants to know is when you do envision an alien or an extraterrestrial being, when you close your eyes and you're envisioning it, what do you see?
I can tell you right now. I think because it's the most popular, widely spread sightings, I think of a gray immediately.
That's the generally accepted idea of what an alien looks like.
That's the first thing I think of. Now, although I do think that, you know, there definitely are other species, but I think just when the word alien comes up or when someone says anything about an alien, the first thing that pops into my head is a vision of a gray. That's just me. Because it is so widely reported and so widely studied and most common. What about y'all?
The first thing that pops into my head, and I swear to you, is from Land of the Lost, Enoch the Sleestack.
Yes.
It really is, because I used to watch Land of the Lost over and over, and that Sleestack, but he was the one that could talk. All the rest of them are shh. No, this is the one who's like, be careful, Rick Marshall. There are things you do not know. And he had that. You know what's odd? He had that lobster claw hand, and he was reptilian. So wait, maybe mind blown. Wait, I do believe in reptilians.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't a costume. Maybe they just put him in front of the camera.
I do. I think of Enoch. That was the Sleestack. That is what I think of whenever I think of an alien, because that was probably what I associated my first alien. Because see, Enoch used to talk about time travel. Remember whenever they put in Uncle Jack, because Rick Marshall had Spencer Milligan had some kind of contract dispute, and they lost their father through the door of time, and he goes, that's where he got sucked through on the pyramid, and they had pyramids that had powers of time travel. Mind blown. Wait. I was being indoctrinated even then. I do believe in reptilians.
So now that you said that, I actually don't feel weird. I'm so glad I went last. Because y'all remember the movie Mars Attacks?
Yeah.
I don't watch movies. I saw half of it.
Very much my first thought that comes to mind is the woman alien in that movie. The one that's in the, like that skin tight dress with the big huge bouffant hair, you know, whatever, and she's all moving like this or whatnot.
Yeah,
like,
I know what you're talking
I
about.
don't know why, but that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Alien. No idea. Need to go rewatch that movie.
We have three very, very different ideas of what we picture.
Yeah.
But I again, being that I'm slightly older than y'all, and shut your fucking asses. That is what I think of, because even when my son was little, I mean, I would be like, oh, I got all the Land of the Lost on DVDs, and we would watch that. That was one of my son's favorite things. But yeah, I didn't realize how much that actually, I mean, that was like a time travel. They were sucked down into another dimension, into another portal. And wow,
You've also got you got a baby Bigfoot on there, Chaka. So
he was a baby big. Well, actually, he was a Pakuni. So let's get that right.
Wow.
And they never got more than like 4 feet high. That was Ta and Saw. I know way too much about Land of the Lost.
Okay, so since we'll be here all night on Land of the Lost with Shelley again, let me ask another one of our questions that was submitted to us, and this one comes from Angel, and we briefly discussed this on a phone call at one point, but she actually brought it up to me as well. And her question states, can aliens be characterized using human standards, good and bad? Those,
this was like an hour and a half debate. Okay, go ahead.
Hold on. Those are human attributes. What if devouring our plants, studying human bodies, simply living among us is neither good or bad, but simply in their nature? So in other words, can we humanize something that is not human?
That is, I heard something very interesting the other day. It's interesting you say that, because they were talking about,
y'all get your popcorn.
They were talking about people who encountered, there was an incident where this guy encountered some grays, like he was brought aboard a spaceship, and he described his experience that when he looked into this thing's eyes, he did not see any bit of empathy. He did not see any bit of emotion. He said what he got looking back at him was nothing but raw intellect. And he said it's almost as if, and they were very robotic, which people describe grays as being robotic. He said it was almost as if they didn't have a soul, and possibly the reason they're so interested in humans is humans do have emotions. Humans do have different, humans do have emotions, and since they don't, they're curious about us, and they're curious about what makes us human and what makes them not human. Does that make sense, what I was saying?
That makes sense.
Okay.
And now granted, this question actually comes from more or less like her Angel watching last week's, was it last week's that we had Deborah? Yeah, last week's episode, that when we had Deborah on, when Deborah was describing her. So shout out to Deborah for inspiration on this question. But her experience about how she felt the peace and the calm. And it was one of those that it really got Angel to think, and that's why she wanted to ask us, what do we think? My opinion on the matter is it's something that we do, yes, to everyday things. Think of I mean,
your puppy dog. Who's your good girl? Who's your good boy? Do you want a treat?
Pets, animals, stuff like that.
I talk to my pen. If it doesn't write, I go, "You son of a bitch!" I don't know that it's a male pen, but it's pissing me off.
And we humanize them. We give them these emotions. And in my thought process, it's because, well, they're here. We've studied them. We've done tests with dogs. We're trying to figure out what makes their tail wag and what makes them bark or do this or do that. And it's like, I stop to think, wow, that's a really good kind of point. How do we know? How can you add a spectrum of human emotion to something that is not human, that we have not studied or have not been able to have the capability of study, unless we already have? And therefore, somehow, that's how it's got leaked out. That's how we've just... But I think that that's just human nature, to want to humanize things like your dog or inanimate objects or stuff like that. I personally, I don't think that they have a happy, sad, I don't think there's that spectrum.
But wait, isn't the question male or female, and then assigning human characteristics to them? Isn't that her question? How can you determine male or female and then assign human characteristics to them?
Her question is more or less like good or bad. Like when we say they're here to destroy the planet because they're bad, well, how do we know that they're bad? What if it's more or less just that's the way that it is for them? That's the way that they're programmed.
Yeah, so that's what, like, going back to what I was saying about them and their emotions. I think that, you know, if they are here to study us, if that's what they're doing, then they are doing just that. Maybe they have to detach themselves from showing any sort of human characteristics to us in order to get the most accurate data on us to get back to whatever it is they're trying to study.
So you're saying that they're capable of having the good or bad emotions or thought processes or anything that humanizes them in that way?
Well, I think too. I mean, you do have instances as well where clearly people have been in pain whenever they've been operated on or whenever they've been abducted and had test procedures done to them, and they will recognize sometimes that people are in pain and they'll do what they can to stop the pain from happening to them. So maybe there is some sort of empathy there that we just don't perceive, I guess.
Or is that only to make sure that they have a compliant subject?
That could also be it as well. And I don't know if you can necessarily assign good or bad to the entities themselves, but you can assign good or bad to their intentions. You see what I'm saying?
Based on a human spectrum, though.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe they are.
So, but that's the thing, is that
maybe they are but vessels. You see what I'm saying?
Right, because what we perceive, because we're putting that good bad on them, their intentions, because that's what we know. We know good, bad. We know left and right. We know what they're doing for us because we've been taught that human concept of emotion and the intentions and the triggers and all that stuff, what's good and what's bad. But have they? How do we keep humanizing these things that aren't human? Or why?
I think it's just natural.
I think that they absolutely have some kind of emotional structure. Just being any animal has some kind of emotional structure. You see a mother lion taking care of her cubs. You see a father protecting his young or protecting his territory. I think that there's an inherent ability to have emotions. They may not be on the same spectral scale as ours. Their emotional direction may be different. But I think that, okay, so think of it like this. You say that Brian, your point was that they may have such a high intellect that that they do not present any emotion. However, if you think about a police officer, a fireman, an EMT who has to go in, a surgeon who has to go in, do the job, they have to take the emotion out of it in order to make sure that they do everything right in order to give the best possible outcome for whatever the goal of that procedure that moment is. And so therefore they have to turn off their emotion and they have to work on muscle memory, rote memorization of things that have to be done. So therefore, why can they not just be coming here? Even if their intellect is this big, they cannot show emotion to us. They cannot do that because that might mar or influence their testing, their tests. They might, mar their outcomes of their testing. However, just the fact that, as we said, we've heard experiencers say that there is something that someone or an entity that will calm them down if they're able to identify our emotions, which means if you program that into an AI, they're still able to identify it. But if they can't identify it and they have no knowledge of it, see, they'd have to have a knowledge of it in order to go, oh, we have to do something because this is obvious discomfort. They've at least figured out how to identify those emotions within us, which makes me think they have to be able to relate to them in somehow.
Right. But hold on. I got to sneak this in just real quick.
Okay, you're totally fine.
I get where you're going, but just as you say that they're programmed that way to elicit the human to have a response, It's just like when I ask Siri to tell me a joke. I mean, Siri's going to tell me a joke because she's programmed to tell me a joke because I need laughter at that point. So,
But serious jokes aren't funny.
But I understand that. But what I'm saying is that Siri doesn't have a human range of emotion
yet. AI is constantly evolving.
Oh, we're not going to go down the AI rabbit hole, but we will be here all night on that. Anyways, go ahead, Ryan. I don't mean to keep cutting you off. Sorry.
No, you're fine. What I was saying that like to build upon what that's what I was saying. Like maybe they're just detached in order to get the most accurate data on their test subjects, which are us, humans. Right. But on top of that, let me pose this question to you.
Okay.
What if they do have empathy? They do have a range of emotions, but we can't perceive it because a lot of stuff that we go off of is body language, facial cues, and things of that nature. If you remember, most people who encounter the Greys said they're being communicated with telepathically. What if they are working on a different wavelength and they are communicating those emotions on a telepathic wavelength versus a physical wavelength?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was getting at, was that just because they don't do it the way that we do it doesn't mean that they don't have them, that they don't have the ability. Because if they are, and let me tell you the difference between that and Siri, Blake, is that Siri doesn't know to tell me a joke if I'm unhappy. Apparently, these experiencers, whatever it is, knows that something is wrong and makes an effort to comfort them or to alleviate the discomfort that they're feeling.
Right. I mean, they're responding to a stimuli just as Siri.
Right, but the difference is that you're having to ask Siri to respond. They are just responding. Just to kind of throw a wrench. Here we go. We're not arguing. We're debating.
And
I'm really trying to keep this a hell of a lot shorter than we had it on the phone call.
Well, I mean, I think
whatever we talked about before.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I think that this is an amazing question that Angel has posed, because
Absolutely.
It's why and how do we keep humanizing something that isn't human? We obviously know it is not of the same species as we are. So why do we keep throwing human emotion and human genders and all of that stuff at it when in fact it's not human? I think that
at the end of the day, that's the only way we can cope with the idea that they have to have something like us, or operate like us in order to be able to, again, wrap our mind around that possibility.
Yeah.
In order to not go outside this line, they have to be something like us. So why would they? Yes.
They have to be
fit
in
into
this box
in some way
to be able for us to comprehend what we're experiencing in the moment. I will agree with you on that. Now, whether they actually hold a spectrum of emotion of some sorts, jury's still out on that for me.
I think that any creature does. They all have some kind of emotion of some sorts, or at least a spectrum of whether it's primal, whether it's id or ego, or whether it is just whatever. They do have a spectrum and range of emotions.
Right.
Bear in the woods crawling along, something can piss that bear off. It's a bear, or they can be happy along, scooping up their fish.
We have a comment we have a comment in the thread that is from Shelby, that in the last part she says exactly what I think. So the whole thing reads, I feel like when it comes to the quote line of sand in our mind, at least for me, there are certain things that in the back of my mind that I believe does not possibly exist in other realms. Society just makes me convince myself that they aren't real so that others don't think that I am crazy.
And
I think that
point,
goes
Shelby.
right along with they have to fit in this box for me to understand and for me to not think of myself as crazy, nor somebody else to think that I am crazy.
We have been conditioned.
Absolutely. Now that I 100% agree on.
We have been conditioned that if you say that you've seen a little green man and
you're going to be ridiculed.
You're going to be laughed at. You must have just got out of the, something's wrong with you. You need to go see the doctor if you say you saw a little green man. But in all actuality, that's not the case, because there are what they call credible witnesses, which are one of the documentaries is in UFO: The Lost Evidence, is about the military and UFOs. And the guy, Nick Pope, actually says if a police officer or a pilot is a good credible witness, he goes, an astronaut is an outstanding one, because they talk to an astronaut that says that he saw things. So again, fascinating. So
I think Buzz Aldrin even has said off the record pretty much that he saw stuff on the moon, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right on that. I think
you
I
are correct on
read.
that.
Yeah, I've read something.
And there's an alleged conversation that happened before, and I can't remember which again, I'm trying to go off memory which Apollo crew it was that were attempting to land, and one of them says to the person who's supposed to go out and go first, said, "Yeah, if you had any balls, whenever you got out there, you go, who the hell are all these people?" It's his
Oh,
first
my
words
Lord.
when he gets off. Yeah, I about fell out laughing. I'm going, I like whoever's that, second in command, dude, because that'd be the shit I'd say. I could go on, Ryan, go out there and go, take me to your leader. I would be doing some shit like that.
Oh, that's another good comment that Deborah just put up. That
What's the comment?
It says,
Can we see it?
Yep. It says public mockery, I think, is one of the reasons so many people have suppressed their own psychic abilities too. So not just about UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrial, but their own psychic abilities as well. That's a good, excellent point too, because if you start to think with people who have claims of being psychic or psychic abilities, they're very timid and afraid to come forward. I mean, think about all the times that we go in an investigation and we ask out loud, "Hey, how many of y'all have an ability?" And everybody is like,
There's
we're
always
like, "Come
some
on, don't be,
hesitation.
don't be shy. Like you're in an open-minded group. We're very open-minded. If you have an ability, just raise your hand, because we're going to probably rely on you more throughout the investigation for what you see, hear,
see what
feel.
you get. Yeah.
But that just kind of goes to society's control across the board, not just aliens, UFOs, paranormal, psychic abilities. I think
So whenever you say psychic abilities, okay, now there's a difference in having a psychic ability and being a psychic.
Yeah.
We know where you're going.
We know
where you're going. We know where you're going.
There have been so many people that have taken advantage of people saying, "Oh, I can contact your dead Aunt Della." Funny, that wasn't my aunt's name, but go ahead and try it. You got a name right, because that I have gone to see some psychics, be like, "Oh, please tell me about my Aunt Della." "Oh, your Aunt Della's with you." "No, don't have an Aunt Della, but that was a good shot." There are so many people who claim to be able to do this and take advantage of people that are longing to speak to a child that's passed, or their mother or father or grandparent that was very special to them, and they blatantly take advantage of these people's emotional situation. So I got an issue with psychics. Now, people that have abilities, so I'm not going to say psychic ability, I'm just going to say abilities. I'm okay with people with abilities. I don't care for psychics who call themselves psychics and take people's money. I don't care for them.
I mean, because it does make it harder for people to come forward who actually
are
have
legitimate.
An ability.
That's right.
Yeah.
And those psychics have given people with actual abilities very bad reputations, because they are money-hungering assholes.
9 times out of 10, when I meet people who actually have some type of psychic ability, they claim to have an ability. When I meet people who claim to be a psychic, they're faking.
My eyebrow always goes up and goes, "Really? Tell me about my Aunt Della."
I'm about to start. Now the secret's out. You're going to have to change your aunt's name.
I don't have an Aunt Della. But see, a real psychic would know that.
Oh, and speaking of abilities, we got a great question. Do y'all have abilities?
Who asked that?
Jenny.
Mind your business, Jenny.
So,
no, thank you, Jenny.
We've we've touched on this in past episodes. I think probably briefly. I don't know if we've actually ever kind of gone into. Jenny said, "Fine, she'll mind her business." we're gonna answer the question anyways, Jenny,
because we love you.
I'm just an asshole, Jenny. Don't mind me.
So here, I'll actually leave the question up on the screen while we answer it. We've touched on this in past episodes, but like I said, I don't think we've ever really kind of gone in depth about it. For me and myself, I really have only very recently started speaking a little bit more openly about what I feel, what I sense. I haven't really landed on a pure definition of what I don't think that there is, on what I can put it put the box around it, you know. Ryan, you and I tested this at the Gray County
Oh, yeah.
Historical Museum, and it is on camera of me testing this ability, where I sat blindfolded in the middle of the floor and just kind of tapped into what I was feeling at that point. And I told Ryan, I was like, "Oh, hey," I was like, "Okay, I'm feeling something to my right." And Ryan went over with a couple of pieces of equipment, and they all started kind of spiking. I was like, "Okay, now it's kind of off to my back a little bit." And he moved it around, and it started spiking again. And I was like, "Okay, it's gone." And I was like, "Wait, it's to my left now." And I was like, "But not close, like a little bit first." So Ryan walked about 3 feet away from me, and everything started spiking again. And I've started noticing in certain places that we go, whenever it's my first time there visiting or something, I'll be led around and people were like, "Okay, what are you feeling here? What do you know?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I don't really like this corner over here." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's where somebody hung themselves." And I'm like, it's like I'm almost finding it out for myself as I go. It's freaky. It is
You
very
pick up on
freaky.
energies. You're empathic with energies. You're sensitive to energies, and you can find energies, and you follow energies. Yeah, you can read intentions with the energies.
And it wouldn't. I feel comfortable with y'all two on the screen and saying all this because you two have been in the room when I've done this.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it has been on camera when I have done this. So I don't say this just to shoot it out of my ass, you know. I mean, there's documentation behind it as well. So for me, it's the being able to feel the energy or be pulled in the direction that we should be going to, I guess you could say. So Ryan, what about you?
I think like we had talked about this at Paracon too. I don't know if I would necessarily call it an ability, but you know, I think yours is very strong where you can kind of direct, you know, like you said, you can feel things like, but like I can walk into a room and I can feel if the room is heavy or if it's not, or that there's something ain't right about it. I can do that, but I think that might just be intuition. So I don't know if I would say I had an ability.
You are intuitive, Ryan. You're exactly right on that. You walk in, you can read the energy in the room, but also Ryan has this unique ability that if the energy is too wonky in a room, that his energy will balance it back out and kind of stabilize. If the energy goes really high negative or really high, you know, if the energy gets out of whack, Ryan just being there and kind of talking out loud kind of rebalances that room. Now I can't do that because I'm like free food to these assholes.
I'm like, why do you think we put Ryan in the middle of us tonight?
Right,
because here's me and Shelly right here, you know. Just
and Ryan does have a really uncanny ability to stabilize unstable energies in a location. If things start going really wrong, Ryan is the person to have in there because he kind of re-steadies the boat. So definitely.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
But I'm gonna tell you right now, this one here to my right, she's got something going on because, well, her, we're mirrored. You know,
I was like, it's mirrored, so
it fucks me in a little bit because we're mirrored. But
I know.
So Shelly's got a good. I like to say Shelly's got a good sniffer because I have been with Shelly at places and she has sought out rooms or spots immediately where something, not knowing a damn thing about the place. Like, I guess the best instance I can give you is we were at Ohio State Reformatory.
The world's largest freestanding prison.
The world's freestanding cell block. I mean, 6 stories. These cell blocks are freaking massive. We've never been there before. We know a little bit about the stories and stuff that have gone on there. And we go to this place. The first place Shelly walks to on the cell block, not knowing
it's in the dark.
There is a cell where a man set himself on fire because he got denied his parole. So he covered himself in some sort of fluid and put a mattress up over himself and lit himself on fire, and the guards were not able to come get him out before he burned to death. One of the most haunted cells in the place. Shelly, not knowing a damn thing about the place, in the dark, I'm following her. She's like, I just get something from this cell right here. And she walks into the cell. And as she walks into the cell in front of me, like I said, it's dark. You can't see anything. I happen to turn to the left slightly. And when I turn to the left slightly, I see a sign to the left that says that this is the cell where the person burned themselves alive. You know, it's
Yeah,
like one
and
of the
Ryan
most
had to
haunted
click
cells
on
in the
his
prison.
flashlight because we did not have our flashlights on, and that place was
Mhm.
pitch black. And I'm like, well, I'm like, you know what? This cell smells like smoke to me. I go, I got to go in this cell. I'm like, something wrong with this damn cell.
Mhm.
And I went in, and Ryan's like, here, let me flip on the light. And he's like, and he leans because the plaque was past wherever I went in. It was at because the
Mhm.
door was here, and then you had the bars, then you had the cell plate over here. And he goes, you ain't gonna believe this shit. You just found it. Now I have been with Blake too, and Blake at this one place that we went near his hometown. He was like, I've been in here before. He says, I'm just going to open the door and let you go. And I took off like a damn bloodhound. I go, oh, whatever it is, it's right back here. I go, I can find it. And we went to the back where this little kitchen area was. He goes, yep, this is the place. He goes, this is the place I was telling you wasn't any good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, wind me up and let me go.
Well, and in that spot, now hold on, in that spot, you and I immediately turned around and we because I started picking up on things, but I opened that door and you right all the way straight to the back, and you're like, no, I want to go back this way, and you went like straight to that spot, but we turned around and you and I both started snapping pictures, and in those pictures, we caught a couple of things that was kind of like,
So we got a couple of strange
that's
orbs. We got a
weird.
weird mist, and we got
Yep.
an area that had light that was coming through was suddenly very dark, but there was no
Mhm.
figure there.
Yeah.
Now again, if it's anything bad or negative, I'm real good at picking up on that shit.
Yeah, she can find that shit real easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if she can find that shit or if that shit can find her really easy.
Yeah.
She walks
So,
in the door
no.
and they're like, hell yeah.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, let's play with this bitch.
Yep.
Now I always say I don't have an ability because the way I see it is like, you know, I view my ability as like my bra. I never know if it's on or not. So if by chance, I mean, I don't know how to use it. Sit up, Blake.
Well, that's what I'm
So I
saying.
think
Like,
if
you
I don't know how
swear.
to use it, I shut up, Blake. I think if I don't know how to use it, I can't claim I have it, and
Well,
I never know if it's working or not. So
No, and you swear up and down that you don't, but like, I mean, I have been with you all over the place, and if you got a feeling about something, I don't think I've ever seen you be wrong. To be quite frank about it, like you
blind
are
pig and
spot
an
on.
acorn, dude.
Yeah.
Blind
So-
pig and an acorn. Every now and then I get one right.
Shit, every now and again.
Oh, excellent question. I always love that question when we get that. We've had
Thank
that
you,
question.
Jenny.
Yes, thank
Mhm.
you. We had that question on here now. We've had that question at Paracon. We get asked that question at investigations. I do
usually
love
just
that
let
question.
these two go and go, yeah, I don't got nothing. These two, ooh, I'm like, yeah, go ahead and ask it.
or my favorite question when we get asked, have you ever been scared? And Shelly's like, I don't get scared. Now these two,
They run like bitches. Yeah.
and I'm just like,
Yeah, I know. That's my favorite answer. Is like, no, I don't get scared, but these two run like bitches. You should see them. You know. Oh my God, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Well, gentlemen,
I think that's about it. We don't have any more questions that are coming through.
Sufficiently wrapped up our alien month. I am so happy about the things we've covered. I think that we have been as thorough as we can be. You guys have great homework. And like, why don't you tell them everything else they need to know?
Well, first, I'm going to kick it off and go ahead and reveal a nice little secret about next week. Because I know with anticipation, there have been some hints on my Facebook. Next month, I know, some just solid, just drops. Next month we're going to be getting into a mixture of stuff. No more of this. Well, no, I'm not going to say no. For next month, we're not going to have this ladies month, men's month, alien month. We're going to kind of mix it up for you. So we got a couple of special guests that are coming on, but I'm going to kick off the month and I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite conspiracies, and that is the death of Marilyn Monroe. I am neck deep into the research and I'm absolutely ready to present this to y'all. So I just want to drop that right now. So tune in next week. It's going to be really fun.
Love us a good conspiracy theory.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be really fun because I'm not one of these that believes she did it herself. We'll just put it that way. So anyways, whatever social media channel you're watching us from, remember we are across all social media channels. So make sure you go and follow us across the board. We don't use all the channels for the same reason. We post different stuff to different things. And also, if you want to catch us on an investigation and join us on investigation, we got a couple of places that you can buy tickets to. August the 6th, which is a week and a half away. Oh, I'm so excited. We still have tickets available for the Gray County Historical Museum. We will repost that link tomorrow. That way you can purchase tickets if you'd like to join us. That one has turned out to be a really good place.
Yes,
Lots of paranormal claims that we have captured on film. We have captured on camera and recordings. It has not disappointed us yet. So if you're just looking for a new place to check out, we're the only ones that can get you in.
That's
just
right.
FYI. So if you want to join us on that, we'll repost that link so you can purchase the tickets. And Shelly, take it away.
So there's another way that you can hang out with us a little bit more if you just don't get enough of us here. That is called Patreon. You can become a member of Patreon. It's $5 a month. We don't have any tiers. We're not going to make you pay $10, $15. $5, you get everything, which includes our pre-broadcast. And if you want to know what Ryan almost had to do on a camping trip, watch Patreon. Please come. Sorry. You should always stay to the end just for these.
You should.
You can go and become a member of Patreon. It's only $5 a month. Ryan, tell us how. Tell us and tell them. I mean, never mind. Go ahead with your bad self.
Just go.
Okay, you
I'm
asshole.
still giggling about Patreon.
So yeah, tell 2 friends about us. Have them tell 2 friends about us. Spread the word. Get us out there, because the more people who listen, the better and more content we can bring you. Go rate and review us on Apple Music and Spotify. Please, please, please give us the 5-star. Let us know what you think. Give us a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about anything, Blake, where can they send questions to?
If you have any questions,
subscribe, like, and share as well.
Exactly.
Subscribe, like, give us those thumbs up on those YouTube's videos.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, even, I don't care. We'll listen to it all. Videos, photos you want us to take a look at. We do not share other people's evidence, but if you have a question about one of your pieces of evidence that you're not sure about, send it over. We'll take a look at it and we'll tell you what we think. You can send those to theevppod@gmail.com. That is THEEVPPOD@gmail.com. And that is our correspondence for this podcast. So anything that you have question wise that you want to send there, send it on over, except for asking Shelly on a date.
Knock that shit off.
Ladies, I'm single.
So, well, we thank y'all for
Ryan
joining
likes
us.
hairy-legged wiggin. Hairy-legged
Like,
wiggin.
what?
I got tongue-tied, y'all.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and we're going to call that a quit.
It's just time for
thank
my
y'all.
friends. Yes. For my friends in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith and Mr. Ryan Roberts, I am Shelly Pruitt. Thank you so much for watching Everything Vaguely Paranormal. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Go find out what Ryan did on his camping trip.
Oh, God.